Finally, we're getting to an actual piece of crap. Oh, shit, this scene! Quick, deploy the Herbies! Whew. Thanks for letting me use the Herbies until I figure out a good sensor bar, Mr. Fantastic.
Hey, no problem, Austin. I haven't used these things in a while.
Hey, if it's not too much to ask, you don't think you can get Man-Thing in here, can ya?
Sorry, pal. Haven't been to the Everglades in a while. We do have Damien Hellstrom in the waiting room of the Baxter building if you want him.
I'm good. He's probably busy.
Ugh.
They call him Howard the Duck. No way to conceal it. With a feather's touch, I love him apart. They call him Howard the Duck. If it ain't funky, don't feel it. And he shot an arrow straight to my heart.
What makes a movie bad? Scratch that. What makes a movie so bad that it's universally considered to be one of the worst films ever made? Is it because of its offensive sensibilities in place of anything worthwhile? Its cheap production values instead of anything demanding artistic vision or creative collaboration? Or a ridiculous concept that simply cannot be salvaged regardless of morals or unique authorship? I feel that often the movies that are the ones nobody wants to make are the movies that no one wants to see. The whole process of film is an active passing of creative drive that has to happen between filmmaker and filmgoer. And thus, our example today is
Howard the Duck.
being one of the first live-action adaptations of a beloved Marvel comic and also one of the first films produced by George Lucas after he stepped down from being president of Lucasfilm. Howard the Duck is one of the most prominent examples of the worst films ever, and people are justified in that film's status partly. While the film is by no means good, I feel that maybe in hindsight, it just doesn't fit the bill. But what do I know? You know me, I live for these bizarre ideas that are explored in film, books, games, etc. And perhaps me being a fan of the original comic might have something to do with it, somewhat. The original comic, scripted by talented writer Steve Gerber at Marvel during the 1970s, is one of the most unique things that the company had ever published at the time. It was a unique fusion of comic book weirdness with political satire almost exclusively found and offered only by the underground comic scene of the late 60s, early 70s in the United States. Howard remains one of my favorite characters in the entire Marvel canon just for his uniqueness and qualities inserted by Gerber. Apparently that resonated with Lucas as well, who was a fan of the comic ever since his early career in filmmaking. I think the problem with the creative development of Howard the Duck is that it doesn't lie within a hellish production but a complicated state of artistry and direction. Our story follows Howard, a duck living on a planet of mallard kind, when he suddenly gets beamed into the mysterious land of Cleveland, Ohio.
What is this place?
Cleveland?
Cleveland? Uh-huh. That's a perfect weird name for this planet.
There he meets Beverly, played by Leah Thompson, who is a local rock musician who decides to befriend the displaced waterfowl. As Howard tries to find a way back home and a way to survive in this park pond Earth, he encounters the various hairless apes and a group of scientists, one played by Tim Robbins, who were responsible for the event that led to Howard's predicament. However, the scientist's machine may have awakened something terrible and dark in the depths of the universe. With the creative decision by the directors to have more of an emphasis on special effects over satire or commentary, Howard the Duck certainly looks like an odd film beyond the man in a duck costume. The Cleveland presented here looks drab and dark, and its inhabitants are just as hostile. While shot competently, it's not really a pretty film to look at in any sense of the production, except for maybe some aspects of the duck world in the beginning. And you know what? On a level, I get it. It's Cleveland. It's a few miles south of Detroit and is known to have some weirdos appear out of the speedways every once in a while.
So the thing about almond joy is like I like them, but I hate coconuts. First world problems. Yeah, I'll get you some other time, baby. It.
While the special effects are adequate for the time, it isn't necessarily ILM's best work, coming right after Back to the Future and Return of the Jedi. Howard is a good special effect, but often looks more creepy than he does charming or cute. The monster at the end of the film, while grotesque, is animated quite wonderfully with a lot of attention to the different features to make it look like a living creature, even though it looks super dated by today's standards. What is this Harryhausen tomfoolery? Everyone in this film just seems like they're phoning it in. Tim Robbins is a bit wacky as a scientist friend of Beverly.
Howard!
Oi.
Jeffrey Jones is giving a standard performance whenever he isn't required to do a phony, evil alien possession voice.
If you can't take the heat, get out of that kitchen.
And while the combined efforts of Ed Gale and Chip Zien push through this mediocrity, Leah Thompson is really acting like she doesn't have much direction, portraying a character that is more moronic but less applicable than the book.
Oh well. The planet's called Earth. I think.
However, 1985 Thompson does look great in tight pink lingerie, and judging by her wonderfully aged appearance in Left Behind reboot a few years back, she can rapture me any day. Hey, get that high evolutionary abomination off the screen! The only pecker we're talking about here is mine. Actually, this is probably the reason as to why people regard the film as one of the worst ever. Who wants to watch the mom from Back to the Future ruffle the tail feathers of a duck in 1986 without a hint of irony or perspective? And don't answer that. This problem is just one of many. What is the tone of Howard the Duck? Judging by the scenes of this film and how it's reminiscent of the films of that era, who was this made for? Looking at its content and how it's meant to be interpreted, the film swerves from idea to idea and throws Howard from scene to scene with little reason as to what his actions mean to the story in a pathological sense, and the ideas don't really fit the whole of a kid's film or a film for adults. Parts of Howard the Duck seems like it was made in the Ralph Bakshi era of adult animated films that was since long gone by 1986. But what are we supposed to get from this drastically different adaptation of the comic? The film struggles to find a good reason for its own existence besides the obvious and easy "I need to make this film because of licensing rights" excuse or some sort of name recognition or brand awareness. Sometimes you can see the original idea of the comic pressed through.
Tonight, the laser beam hit the nexus of summoners.
What is that? A suburb of Cleveland?
The idea of these science fiction tropes and these big philosophical ideas being tackled by a dang cartoon duck emulates some aspect of the comic, but they're very little of the movie.
Phil, no duck is an island. And if fate sent me here to save Earth, then Howard the Duck is ready to fight.
It's a fake laugh.
It's real!
What you get is a film with a lack of focus. By the time you reach the film's climax, it's apparent that the film is a cavalcade of ideas that amount to nothing satisfying or worthwhile. There's no sense of vision, there's no sense of ambition, it's just a mess. And I think that's a shame. Howard deserves better. Steve Gerber deserves his creation and his ideas represented better. Everything surrounding the character is a unique concept, and just to take it and make light of it is an insult to the comics medium and just fiction writing in general.
Can you burn a hole through this with some kind of eye laser?
Can I bite your nose off with my super bill?
This idea is unfortunately a persistent sin today. But you know what, Hollywood? I think people forgive the concept when it comes to an excellent or approachable execution. Howard the Duck is a pretty bad example of a comic to film adaptation, but as far as the Marvel ones go, I don't feel it's the worst. I don't really mind the first half when compared to the second, but there's only so much of the comic's philosophy present in the film. It has its charms at points, but I can't bring myself to love it or hate it. It's just a middling mess of a film with a troubled life and a complicated legacy. But when it comes to the worst films of all time, I've seen worse.
Ding dong! Ding dong!
Much worse.
Wake up your baby! Guys!
This is obviously no place for an intelligent, sensitive duck.
I'm Maximum Austin, and until next time, keep being confident and you enjoy your day. Excelsior.